Hello all, welcome back to videos on sensations. This video we're going to talk about the olfactory system. So that's the sense of smell. Now remember, the sense of smell and taste are both chemical senses. So let's get into the olfaction system or olfactory system. So humans are relatively insensitive to smell when we're comparing ourselves to different animals. So the stimuli are usually volatile chemical substances that are easily evaporated at room temperature. In other words, what we smell are chemicals in a gas state, usually. And the receptors themselves that sense these chemicals are called olfactory cilia. So these are hair-like structures that are located in the upper portion of the nasal passages. So these are not the hair that grows in your nose. These receptors are very high up in the nasal passage. If you pick your nose, you're not putting your finger up there high enough to touch these. They're pretty high up. They're in kind of the passage that's closer to your eyes than the part of your nose that sticks out. Okay? So the olfactory system, like I said, is way up here past where you're digging around for boogers. Okay? So the nasal passage goes up into your nasal passage, obviously, up by your eyes, and it does connect to your throat and nose, but it actually takes up quite a lot of space back behind and below your eyes. Within this system, then there's some membranes, or like on the edges of the system are the membranes. And within there, then we have these olfactory cilia receptor cells. So this bottom part right here is actually open air. So that's the kind of the passage that air flows through that has this chemicals evaporated within it. And then the chemicals, if they brush past these cells, the cilia kind of grab onto it and kind of transfer that chemical up through the receptor cells into your olfactory bulb. Okay, so your olfactory bulb is right here. It kind of sits behind the eyes, and it's the main collection of nerves that transfer this information straight to the brain. Okay, so it's a large nerve is what the olfactory bulb is. And then within the olfactory bulb are these olfactory axons that transfer this information to the brain. You don't need to know these dudes, but Buck and Axel clarified the mechanism involved in odor recognition. And pretty much they showed that there's a set of genes consisting of over 1,000 different genes that affect how the olfactory receptor cells work. And they actually won a Nobel Prize for this work, which is pretty cool. So the olfactory receptors have receptor structures that resemble neurotransmitter binding sites on the neurons. And any of the thousands of potential odor molecules can lock into the sites that are tailored to fit them. So again, if we look back at those neurotransmitters, remember it's like a lock and key, with a neurotransmitter being the key and the receptor being the lock. It's very similar in the olfactory system, where these chemical smells are the key and the olfactory receptor cells are the lock. However, it's not quite as specific. The receptor cells, there's not like one receptor smell for like cut grass or whatever. It's kind of more general. So odors cannot be classified as neatly as taste. So we don't have like five odors like we have 5 tastes. Humans have about 350 different types of olfactory receptors. And we can distinguish about 10,000 different odors. So clearly, some receptors are able to act as the lock for multiple different odors. Now, that seems like a lot of different odors we can detect, but if you look at bloodhounds, they actually have over 2 million times more sensitive to odors than we are. So they can actually smell things. Like if you walk past someplace, they can smell that 4 days later. It's crazy. So our sense of smell does show some sensory adaptation because it's strongly believed that our sense of smell has slowly faded to over half of its original strength because we don't need it as much because we have such advanced eyesight and communication and other reasons to not need to worry about being able to smell a predator as much as we used to. Again, similar to the other chemical sense, taste, then females do tend to be somewhat more accurate than males in odor recognition tasks. This is, it doesn't always stand up. It's more like a 60-40, so pretty close to even, but not quite. So again, take it with a grain of salt. And then finally, let's just talk about pheromones. So pheromones are a chemical message that are usually sent from one organism to another, usually within the same species. And usually it's something that people don't consciously perceive, so it's typically imperceivable. But it is a chemical message that's sent from one to another, usually from male to female or vice versa. And humans are susceptible to these pheromones. So even though we don't perceive these pheromones, our body will still react to them. However, we don't use pheromones as much as, say, some animals do. So we're really not as susceptible to our pheromone urges as, say, some animals would be. So that's it for the sense of smell.